Ahoy everyone, I'm Chris from Crusted Rabbit and welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year. So the beginning of every new year, the biggest thing that's trending is usually diet. So we put together a pretty quick meal that's easy to make, but it's low carb, low calorie, and it's still delicious. That's what we're doing today. So today we're using a method called parboiling. That's partial boiling. And you use that phase as your initial phase to start pre-cooking your meat, and then you'll move it into the final phase, however you intend to finish it. You know, some people like to fry, we like to bake, I like to stay away from grease if I can. But that's the method, and because of that, there's a lot of variability in the cooking times depending on temps. So you want your internal temperature from a safety standpoint to make sure it still hits 160. So I'm going to highly recommend you utilize a meat thermometer. We use an electronic meat thermometer. This one here is great, and you could do it manually as well, but just make sure that temp gets up to 160 internal. Okay guys, so let's start with the parboiling. Now, really, I know the video doesn't show it, but you want this to bring it up to temperature first. Get that water boiling with the vinegar and onions and everything in it. Then put your protein in. That way you can better tell what kind of timing it's going to take to get that temperature where you want it and pre-cook it to a fixed amount. After that, pull it aside. Let it dry out a little bit because you don't want all that moisture when you start to try and coat it and get the crust on. Now, for making the crust, you put everything in your food processor, get it all set, and you want to pulse it. I wouldn't blend. You don't want it to turn into powder, but you do want to break it down some because it is a crust and you want it to stick. Okay. Once you have that, put it in a bowl or a plate or some way, because now we need to coat your pieces. So take that you could use chicken too if you wanted, but you're using the rabbit for this. Take it and you want to coat it pretty thoroughly in flour, and that gets a good dry base for everything to stick to. And then you want to get just some beaten eggs or egg whites, and put that on there. Now, if you do have an allergy or something to eggs, you can use quail eggs as well, and that usually people who have the allergy to eggs, food allergy, don't have a problem with quail eggs, just really the chicken eggs. So that's something nice to think about. But you want to get it nice and coated, because any spot that you don't have that egg yolk sticking, because it'll fall right off with the flour sometimes. If you don't have it sticking really well, then when you go now to put the crust on, it's going to leave a blank spot right there. So make sure you've coated that piece pretty thoroughly, and then once you get it over, kind of just set it in that crust that you made. Lightly push it down. You don't want to mash it or anything, but you want to give it a chance to kind of just press up against and stick to that egg yolk. Make sure you flip it over, get both sides, get it nice and coated to where it's pretty thoroughly covered. And then once you do that, kind of shake it loosely. Put it in a baking pan with usually parchment paper is what I use so nothing sticks. And then you want to put that in the oven. I think I have it set for 400 degrees, and let it bake for the time it takes. Like I said, use that meat thermometer, get your internal temperature going, make sure it hits 160, and then you'll be done with that. Okay, so while your rabbit is baking, we want to start with getting that spinach. I mean, you want to wait till this is almost done, by the way, because the spinach only takes really a handful of minutes. Get your olive oil up the temperature, and throw your minced garlic on there pretty quickly, because that's going to give it a chance to kind of sweat and break down a little bit. Then you want to put obviously your juices in there and any of the spices. Now be real careful with spicing. I know I put to taste, but you're going to see here I go to put the salt in, and whoops, I got a little bit too much, got carried away, and that really kind of ruins all the spinach. I went and had to redo this because you can over season, and salt is one of the biggest culprits. You want to under salt, and you can always add more, but if you start adding too much of that, it really kind of steals away from all the other flavors. It robs it. So now the spinach that goes in, you just want to kind of move it around, coat it with that olive oil, and it'll start to wilt pretty quickly. And once it starts to wilt, volume-wise, it'll really break down. So you can use quite a bit of spinach, and it's going to break down pretty quick into a lot less than what you threw in there. But once you're all done with that, you put that down as a nice bed for the rabbit to set atop. And and it's a nice presentation. It looks really good. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, and God bless.